Welcome to Spaghetti Bowl Pipelines, from Spaghetti Bowl Pipelines to DLT efficiency. I wanted to talk a little bit today about our journey into hardcore addiction to Databricks tools. Um, a little about, a little about who we are. There we go. I come from Intermountain Health. We're an integrated healthcare system in primarily the western region of the US. You can see some of our numbers up there. So we're large-ish, not huge, not small. We have recently expanded into other states, so growing, and then just an idea of where we operate. You can see we kind of operate from the Sierras to the Rockies, just past the Rockies, so kind of Intermountain West region. A little bit of history on Intermountain. If you've been in healthcare data for very long, you probably know this guy, or maybe not, and I'll introduce you to him. He's Dr. Homer Warner. He was a cardiologist at Intermountain Health, and he pioneered the use of computers in medicine. So if you think about medical informatics, this guy was one of the first to start using computers in medicine. He worked in the basement boiler room of LDS Hospital. I used to work in infectious diseases right next to his office, and it was terrible in the summers. It was really hot. But he put computers down in that basement boiler room and was running computers and analytics on really old machines. So one of the first. And he helped do some of the early VA medical record systems. So kind of an interesting bit of history about Intermountain Health. So who am I? So this is what ChatGPT thinks I look like, and I'm not going to argue. He's a pretty handsome guy, I think. I don't know. I wish I could meet him. I was a librarian for 20 years. Got interested in medical informatics at the University of Utah, and then moved over to medical librarianship, and then got interested in reproducing studies from the literature, which got me into data and statistics and computers and informatics and all that good stuff. So what I do now is analytics engineer in healthcare. I do data engineering primarily, but we do also app development, cloud infrastructure. I still dabble in medical informatics. I was in the graduate program at the University of Utah. Still dabble in that up there. I do serve as the Databricks account admin, and I really love chickens. So this is probably a more realistic portrait of what ChatGPT thinks I look like. And then this is actually a really good representation of my chicken Maeve. So introduce you to Maeve. So if you imagine, I'm happy little data engineer, just building my pipelines, whistling while I work, and an email from the boss comes in. They say, hey, supply chain needs a little bit of help converting their workloads over to this shiny new tool that we just bought called Databricks. Do you have a couple of hours to help? And so I say, hey, this sounds like a quick win. Sure, I'll do that. Make supply chain happy, make my leaders happy. And then I'll get some practice using some of these interesting new tools. And at this time, the gateway drug for us was Delta Live tables, or it might be called Lakeflow pipelines now. I'm pretty sure. So those two things are synonymous. So I was expecting this to be a couple hours of work and happy people all around and backslapping. So I want to pause there. If you're in healthcare data engineering, what kind of feelings come up when you hear that? Oh yeah, it'll just be a couple of hours. It'll be quick win. Boredom, hunger, existential dread starting to creep in. Yeah. So the spaghetti bowl dropped. Turns out there were several dozen of these workflow files. We opened them up and they were just, like I said, spaghetti bowls. This is probably pretty familiar to anybody who's been working in data engineering for very long. Very much a legacy well, I won't say legacy, it's a ClickOps tool. It's great. So you orchestrate pipelines this way. You configure all these little nodes and you drag your little spaghetti noodles between the nodes, and it works. It helps. There were some complications though. So one of the things that was bugging us was that we were going to lose the license to our legacy tool in a couple of months. So there was a deadline on this, right? Another thing was the ClickOps tool had some eccentricities. So it handled data, it handled nulls in ways that we didn't expect, in non-intuitive ways. Um, and then the sources that source the supply chain workflows were being decommissioned onto new sources in fairly short order. So you can imagine, hey, this is the leadership comes and says, hey, this is a couple hours, and then you find out, oh, we're losing the license in X months. Oh, our sources are being decommissioned. So the pressure starts to build, right? So I'd been dabbling around with Delta Live tables for some time, and the thought came up, hey, could we use Delta Live tables to maybe help us do some of this stuff? And the TLDR is, yes, it works great for redesigning those data pipelines that have kind of accreted over the last 20 years in other tools, right? So once I picked my jaw up off the floor and looking at those spaghetti bowl workflows, um, yeah, okay, I already did that slide, sorry. So this is kind of the legacy tool we were using. A lot of you can probably guess what this is. I won't say the name, because no shade to this tool. I just think about, it just doesn't really map with the way I think about things. So the benefits of the legacy tool were it was a ClickOps interface, so a lot of people could get onboarded very quickly. People could work in the tool. The configuration was fairly easy. It was easy to kind of draw things, like have multiple dependencies upstream and lead those to the downstreams through those kind of spaghetti noodles. So that was pretty cool. But when we moved to Delta Live tables, it brought us a lot of really good things. So one of them was it moved us into code ops. So all the benefits that come along with code ops, versioning, CI/CD, it helped us manage complexity a lot easier. It helped us manage collaboration a lot more easily. If we could work in GitHub repos and share pipelines and code between people much more easily. We could also deploy to multiple different environments very easily, where we couldn't do that in our legacy tool. And it was versioned. So the only drawback I really saw when we started implementing Delta Live tables was that it was a bit of a steep learning curve. So people were used to the ClickOps visual GUI tools and configuring their little tool nodes. And now they had to actually write code in files, in SQL, things like that. So that was the only real downside to moving to Delta Live tables. So I wanted to talk a little bit. One of the things that really helped us was that Delta Live tables and Delta job, Databricks jobs, Lakeflow jobs now, was the elegance with which it allowed us to handle complexity. So if you had you can have nested DAGs in one workflow. So on the left-hand side, you see that there's a job defined. The job it basically runs notebooks, Python notebooks, in a DAG fashion. So it can have dependencies. So you run this, then that, then that, then that. You can use upstreams into multiple downstream nodes. So you can do things like grab data from upstream sources or APIs. You can refresh tokens. You can do all sorts of stuff. Anything you can do in Python, you can really do with a Lakeflow job. And then that middle node is actually one of the pipelines, so the Delta Live table. And so you can see how complex you could get. You could have multiple pipelines in the same job. And so if you think about these spaghetti bowl pipelines, it really helped us to kind of manage that complexity, because we could move a lot of those sections into individual pipelines and then orchestrate those pipelines in the job together, right? So we didn't have kind of one screen full of nodes that was hard to reason over. It was much more easy to reason over that kind of programmatic and simple DAG and nested DAG. So I said Delta Live tables were our gateway drug. Gateway drugs are great. We soon got addicted to something else called asset bundles. If you haven't experienced asset bundles, I hope this was listed as a beginner talk, so I hope you all don't know this already. But asset bundles have helped us a lot. It's a simple concept, but it has allowed a lot of value in our work streams. So an asset bundle is just a code programmatic definition of a Databricks object or a collection of objects. It's an end-to-end definition of a project in one place. There's source control, there's versioning. It enables CI/CD processes. So whereas before in the legacy tool, we had no way to version things, to deploy things to multiple environments, suddenly through asset bundles, now we had that ability to programmatically deploy, to deploy to multiple environments, a lot of really good things. So that is what an asset bundle looks like in a folder. So if you've never seen one of those before, really easy to organize files. You have a resource definition that defines all your jobs and your pipelines. And then you have your source, which is all of your code, your queries, your Python, everything like that. And then there are a couple other things like the Databricks YAML, which defines your targets, things like that. So kind of 3 different concepts there. Really easy to get to kind of wrap your head around and start building these really complex pipelines. So in case you're not familiar with what CI/CD is, it means continuous deployment, continuous integration. I think I got that backwards. Continuous integration, continuous deployment, continuous delivery. I think that has been the biggest benefit that I've seen in my work, is the ability to deploy to multiple environments like that in a quick manner and have a lot of the machinery around building pipelines automated away. So you kind of, it's pain once. You build it on the front end, and then you get to enjoy the benefits of it all the way along the pipeline. So it's a little bit more work up front, a lot less work down the road. And so if there's one thing I would say is the thing we learned that was the most valuable, is that it is setting up your CI/CD processes early. It took us getting addicted to the gateway drug of Delta Live tables to get to this point, but Delta Live tables were really just the first entry into these Databricks tools, and it allowed us to start using some of these amazing other things like CI/CD. So this is actually a picture of our CI/CD, well, our developing CI/CD process. I won't go too far into this because your organizations will do this yourselves, but just an encouragement that, just to encourage you to, if you've been hesitant to start using Delta Live tables and CI/CD and asset bundles, if you choose one of them, the Delta Live tables is an easy one to choose to start converting those legacy workflows into these Databricks tools. And then you'll start to go down the road of hardcore addiction into some of these other Databricks tools. So just the last slide before I do thank yous. I didn't cover all of the benefits that we saw through implementing Databricks tools, but this is just a little table of some of the other things that we experienced, and some of the things that Databricks tools in general helped us do. So I did want to thank a couple of people. So my leaders were willing to try these new tools and let me experiment. One of the things we learned was it's very valuable to give your people a little bit of breathing room so they can experiment with new tools and new products and things like that. We had a great Databricks account team, so I wanted to shout out Charles Bach, Mark Olson, Stephen Beal, and then my fellow analytics engineers for curiosity and enthusiasm. So Ben LeBaron for leadership, Joe Runyon, and then Ben Swatling for being in the trenches. So thank you for your kind attention. If you have any questions, I'll be up here.